Hello again. This is Charlie Belfontaine, and I've been gone for a couple weeks, and these great people have been holding down the fort for me. But good morning, and I think that's a pretty big misconception that's out there. But before I start getting my 2 cents on this stuff, I really want to introduce my two favorite people that are here. So, Patrick, if you don't mind, take the lead.
That are here. I mean, try not to paint us with faint praise. Why don't you? My name is Patrick Loftus. That's Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd on all socials. I can be found on social media as well. Find me on, Instagram, Loftus_Loft. I'm on TikTok, Loftus Law. And if you want to see me in my feral state, go find me on Reddit, Rod Longwood.
Rod Longwood.
What is what happens when you choose a screen name when you have nothing to lose?
I think that doesn't Reddit give you a screen?
Chose that one.
I had some sort of Illinois mammoth or something like. Where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, I like how you're trying to pawn that off on Reddit. That's cute.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
Joey, give me the deets.
Hey, what's up, fam? Joey Matthews, NMLS 1-3-3-0694, the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me, as Patrick said, on all the socials is at the VA Loan Nerd. You can go to VALoanNerd.com and find me. That's my thing. It's what I do. I like to watch the markets. I know before we started jumping on the radio here, Charlie was talking about rate improvement and all this wonderful stuff, and I would argue that it's not necessarily improved. I would say that if anything, we are still trading in a very narrow window. And when I say a very narrow window, I mean within 100 basis points for the last, almost 6 months, save for a nasty little tick we saw in January where things got really bad, but then it went right back to the norm. But you know me, I'm never going to be a guy who says, look at rates when you're looking to finance and not move, but look at being happy when you're looking to buy. If you can afford it, you can buy it. That's the way to go.
Joey, you quite boldly predicted the future of interest rates last week, and all of a sudden you're clawing that back to say that I don't always know what is going to happen with the rates. What's happened since then? Or am I mischaracterizing what you said last week?
Well, I'm done with Joey Stradamus. Joey Stradamus is a fraud. He's a failure. He has not predicted well. But no, what's happened in the last week, we saw, today we had an ADP jobs report come out that was significantly stronger than expected, but there was a positive reaction in the rate market. Typically, you would see an adverse reaction because job creation is bad for, quote unquote, bad for the inflation, right? And inflation's bad. You want rates high to tame spending. What did happen a couple of days ago? My goodness gracious.
To be clear, I am mischaracterizing what you said. What you said is predicting rates is a bit of a fool's errand. If I may paraphrase. But once again, and this seems to be my weekly habit, I have decided to be unfair to Joey and either mischaracterize what he says, misquote him, ask him unfair questions, and really just be a right jerk. And I guess that's just who I am.
But we're used to stuff like that. I mean, that's not anything that's unusual. And I don't mean that sounded like I was attacking you, my favorite attorney.
I really have said some things already this morning that are deserving of that kind of treatment.
Joey and I were in the firehouse, and it's always, when they're making fun of you and they're picking on you and they're practical jokes and everything on you, that's a good thing. All right, that means you're liked. And that when somebody shuns you and stays away from you, that's not good.
The worst thing that can happen, I think that I don't have any firehouse experience, but I have a lot of frat house experience.
There you go.
And honestly, from everything that you've told me about the firehouse, it sounds a lot like the frat house. Honestly, if nobody's paying attention to you, that's where you ought to worry. If you're getting teased, or if you're Yeah, I mean generally speaking the teasing, the ribbing. This is how men bond, right? We the locker room talk is our leaders are so fond of alluding to.
Now, we're recording this on April 2nd. I know it airs on the Saturday afterwards. And April 2nd is supposed to be the day that all these tariffs are going into play.
All right? I can't wait to
4
talk
p.m.,
about
baby.
this.
4 p.m. That's what Patrick's here for. Let's go. We actually just changed today's show to talking about
I'm
tariffs.
gonna pack up and.
Well, no, but if this comes through, and I guess we're gonna know when you listen to the show on Saturday if it did go through or not. I'm not 100% confident that it is going to go through because, quite frankly, I see the stock market is going down. I see a whole bunch of things is going down, and if we start adding inflation and kicking everything up 20% or more, I think that is going to harm the economy. I'm going back to my 2008 and the gas prices shooting up. I know you guys all think I'm nuts on that, but I still believe that was the final trigger or the straw that broke the camel's back. If people can't afford, buying things, then they're not going to buy them.
All right, the three owners of EVs. Let's debate the significance of gas prices. And it's funny because, but
that
was then, not now. And that was a trigger then. It could be anything.
I'm saying that 100% tongue in cheek because I've been, because of you. Thank you very much. I've been reluctantly having to take that seriously because if I continue to fight facts, and it's certainly where facts matter, where the facts matter.
Nice plug.
I'm gonna find myself in a bad spot because I'm resisting, something that is, real and true. There are people, and whether or not it's actually affecting them personally, like in a gas prices are so high that I can no longer afford certain things that are necessities for me or I view as near necessities. That would be a real and direct impact of gas prices. But I think even people kind of, it's become a barometer of how successful a given administration is what are the gas prices, which is really kind of like just bizarre to me because as far as I'm aware, gas prices are determined on an open market, right? And, of course, we have to take into account that there is the largest player in that open market is a cartel that sets quotas and maximums and minimums for production, which alters the market, and it does not leave it as a true market, so to speak. But I mean, there are certain things an administration can perhaps do, some levers they can pull to try to influence things one way or the other. But at the end of the day, it's the price of gas, or the price of oil, the price of any commodity is determined by what someone's willing to pay for it, not necessarily by what the president says or does.
And I guess I don't mean to focus on just gasoline. What I'm trying to do is most people don't have disposable income. Most people live check to check. I think that's the vast majority of our population. And if all of a sudden you start getting, an increase in your necessities, and I'm going back down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, water, shelter, and in order to get those three needs, that we're going to have a job and we have to have some sort of an income and you got to get to work, that we have to do these sort of things. So that's where the gas comes in there.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
but it's the other three that come into play too. Those are the basic needs.
Not for nothing, but gasoline is one thing, but natural gas for people who use that to heat their homes has been going way up, and that's also, a related thing. If I was to try to figure out how to mitigate the impact of petroleum, the cost of petroleum, wherever I'm consuming it, I have a better chance of doing that with my vehicle choice. I can choose a plug-in hybrid. I can choose an EV. Yeah. I can make some other choices which didn't really exist beyond like a Prius in 2008. If my furnace works on natural gas, my only choice is to be cold.
No, they have more efficient furnaces too, so there are other options.
Yeah, sure. If I've got $5,000 to buy a more efficient furnace, if I'm already feeling the heat, if I'm already feeling pressure on my income and on my resources because of the cost of natural gas heating, I'm not about to reach in my pocket for the $5,000 I don't have and buy a new furnace. So I think
gotcha.
that I'm more likely to be able to finance an alternative vehicle. I mean, you can buy a used EV
Yeah.
for a fairly reasonable amount of money. I just saying.
No, I'm all with it and stuff like that. But yeah, and I want to circle around back because this does relate to the subject I want to talk about is the leverage. And what does that mean? I've always used the term power. All right. And for me, and I apologize, I'm not looking this up and I really don't know if this is the correct definition or not. But I always felt that the word power was being able to influence another person's actions. All right. So if I have power over somebody else, I can have them do something else. And when you're buying real estate, one of the things that I do is that Zoom call with our clients afterwards. And the hardest question, and the one I try to avoid the most, is always, well, should I negotiate for this? Should I ask the sellers to fix this? Is this serious enough to get them to fix this? And then I have to explain to them, there is no matter of principle when it comes in real estate. It really isn't. It has to do with how much leverage you have. And I try to throw out, going back to 2008 again, back then the sellers were, giving their firstborn children away. They wanted to sell their house. They were desperate. They'd lower the prices like there was no tomorrow. But today it's like the buyers are now, giving everything away because the sellers have all the leverage or power. And I don't know, I would love to hear what you two think about that.
Well, if the people that we're talking with are to be believed, buyers are at this stage of the game. And I'm talking, let me be specific here because in different markets, it's going to be different because real estate is extremely local. And when I say extremely local, I mean, we can even go zip code by zip code or neighborhood by neighborhood in terms of whether any of these things I'm about to say are applicable. But if you're looking to buy real estate in a high demand area like many of the parts of Chicago are, you are going to be giving up more things that you would like to have as a buyer than you would in another time or in another market. And that's just the nature of competition. So if there's a house you really like and there's 5 other people that want to buy that house, you've got to find some way to make your offer the most attractive offer. How do you do that? You do that by giving the seller more of what they want. Then you become the best option. All right. Now, once you've done that and you win, you start to think to yourself, oh boy, what have I done here? And you talk to someone like Charlie, or you talk to Joey, or you say, how do I claw back some of what I gave up to get my offer accepted? Like, people want to get their offer accepted. They sort of intellectually, come around on the idea of, making earnest money, non-refundable, waiving mortgage contingencies, as is, no requests. All of these things that puts you as a buyer in a more vulnerable position. All of a sudden, once their offer has been accepted, they don't want to be in that vulnerable position anymore. They want to somehow get back to even. And it's like you don't get to have it both ways, but they're still trying to look for ways to do it. They're looking to you, they're looking to me, they're looking to Joey. They're saying, help me recover from the hole I dug myself. And it's like, there might be some things on the margins I can do to kind of help. There might be some things you'll discover. Not that you're looking for things or trying to blow things out of proportion just to give someone a negotiating position, but there might be some things. But at the end of the day, it's like you've put yourself in that position. Let's try to make it work in the sense that you still want to buy the house. You still want to end up moving into that house. You still want to live in that house. It's the difference between being in a situation where I got everything I wanted from the seller and I really didn't get much other than an acceptance of my offer from the seller. It's not going to matter that much to you in in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks time. So
Good point.
I guess, the end of this long rant would be that, outside of something that's going to absolutely put you in a poverty situation after you close on the home, make sure you are keeping the bigger picture in the back of your mind. If you lose a negotiation on the inspection, if you lose a negotiation on, whatever it is, we're in the margins with that stuff. The much bigger picture is, does this house meet you and your family's needs?
How about you, Joey? Where do you see all this?
Well, I mean, it's also we're in Chicagoland. I mean, everyone obviously listening is probably in Chicagoland, but it's a super hyper local commentary that we're making regarding this power and leverage. Because if you're looking to buy in Southwest Florida, and maybe this is a little bit Chicago related because so many people retire out that way. I help a lot of people move to Southwest Florida. You have all of the leverage in the world. There is there is supply for months in
Really?
Southwest Florida. Oh my God. You can throw a rock and hit 7 listed houses right now.
So
Right.
that's because of the storms, right? And the insurance.
Probably more insurance.
Yeah.
I think
Insurance related.
people can talk themselves into a house on the beach pretty easy. You go, how often is the storm going to come through and wreck my place? But when you hand them the bill for insurance and they go, oh yeah, nah, can't.
Like
Like
$1,000 a month. People I'm hearing paying.
Yeah,
if not
Joey,
more.
what do you see numbers wise in terms of what people are paying for insurance?
It has gone up. I mean, I've been heavily involved in the Florida market since about 2021, and it's gone up probably 300% for your monthly cost, your annual premium.
And it was already high. 2021 wasn't some like watershed moment where we're like, oh my gosh, there's storms in Florida.
Well, I'm hearing too
Yeah.
that a lot of the home inspectors, because they do those 4-point
The 5,
the 4-point and the wind mitigations down there, and and apparently, and God, this is almost slander. So Citizens Insurance, I'm sorry, this is other people saying I'm only repeating, so I don't know if it's true. But everybody keeps saying that this is a very low cut rate type of insurance thing, and it seems like those are
Allegedly.
the ones. Say budget is the right word.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, thank you. But that's where a lot of people are being forced to go to, and even that is getting to be, stupidly expensive. I don't know.
because they're the only people who will carry policy in Florida right now. It feels like.
Yeah. So you're hearing Citizen is pretty much the only game in town as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a total of 3 that I know of, but
Yeah.
Citizens is the most common one that comes across my desk when someone's looking for a new policy. And that's the problem with the monopoly, right? And it's not like they wanted that. It's just that they're the only insurance carrier who hasn't backed out of the market. So, but I mean, that's going to be a double-edged sword for them. Obviously, you're going to have crazy high premiums, but then once a storm does hit, they're also going to be the only ones paying out. And we'll see how that goes when the time comes.
Yeah.
If they pay out. But that's
Exactly.
coming here too.
Exactly.
And again, that was not a slam to any insurance or that particular insurance company. It was more of a general type thing.
It sounds
But it's
to
coming
me,
here.
It sounds to me like job security for lawyers in Florida is what it sounds like.
I'm sure. But, I got to say, I had my very first errors and omissions insurance claim. And I had a demand letter written for me for, I think it was $32,000 that they had it. So the clients ended up, and I know I talked about this before, clients ended up buying a house. The insurance company did a Google Earth on the property. They saw that there was some worn areas on there, and they sent an email off to the client saying you got to get a new roof, and you got 30 days to do it or we're canceling your insurance. So the client went ahead and got a roofer out there. Of course, if you're going to rush everything, it's going to be stupidly expensive. That's why they paid $32,000 for it. They got a new roof on there to satisfy the insurance. And this isn't the only time that this stuff has been happening. Now, we don't know, we as home inspectors, we really don't know what insurance company anybody's going to choose. And those rules change all the time. There's no way I could predict that.
Every insurance company is different.
Everyone's different.
I told a story about a client who was buying a 2-flat, and the insurance company they were trying to get quotes from was like, well, we need to know about the age of the roof and all this stuff, information we really weren't going to be able to get. Now, I would imagine that they kind of know that already, that's going to be difficult information. I mean, you're going to ask the seller, you know, how old's the roof? And the seller's going to go, oh. Because
you sound like teenage kids over there.
Yeah, because that's the easiest answer.
Yeah.
It's going to be really difficult for someone to catch you in a lie there. But let me not be that cynical and say that it's just as likely, if not more likely, that the seller bought it with that roof that was already on it, and so they genuinely don't know. So if it's that kind of black box, how am I supposed to get a quote, let alone buy insurance from you? Luckily, I know an insurance agent who I was able to contact and ask them about it, and they said, you know, we don't need that information to write a policy on a 2-flat. And I was like, great. Sent the client to that agent, and they got insurance, and it was bada bing, bada boom. But it's becoming more and more prevalent where more questions are being asked. It was not something that came up too often. I mean, honestly, up until maybe the last year, just the idea of whether the client could get insurance or if they were going to have difficulty doing so, it never came across my radar. A lot of things never came across my radar. Very rarely did.
It was only this past year.
That are now big issues in just about every transaction I'm dealing with. I mean, stuff's coming up. There's these insurance companies and just in general, lenders, insurance companies, everybody who is taking on risk when it comes to real estate, they are more and more saying, nah. Or wanting more from a buyer in terms of, we're less tolerant to risk. We are more risk averse, and it's making, in addition to everything else, it's making real estate a more difficult space to move in.
And you guys are involved, Joey, I don't know what you're saying, but you guys are kind of involved from the very beginning to hand over the keys. Where I'm only involved in right after the contract signed for a couple of weeks, and that's it. But Joey, are you seeing a lot of, desperate maneuvers from buyers?
I don't know if I would call them desperate maneuvers. I have seen. I mean, I know Steve had talked about this a few weeks ago, but I've seen a lot more escalation clauses going out. A lot more of that. I know he's not a fan of them.
What does that mean? Help me.
It means it's essentially a buyer saying that if someone offers more than I will, than my initial offer, I will offer X amount of dollars over what their offer is up until a certain point, right? So if their initial offer is $350 and they're willing to escalate up to $400, they'll say, I am willing to offer $1,000 more than any other person up until we hit $400,000, as long as you can show you have a verified offer for more. Right. So if someone offers $360, you're saying you'll offer $361 automatically.
If you've ever bought something on eBay, it's kind of exactly how that works, right? So if something's listed for $50 and you offer $100, eBay will only bump it up to whatever it is, $55, and then as people keep bidding, you'll outbid them. That's basically what it is. A lot of people don't like those. Steve doesn't like them. I've had sellers be like, that seems like an unfair negotiation practice, and they've been like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in getting involved with that. You would be surprised. I mean, as far as and Steve's talked about it a number of times where sellers will accept lower gross offers because they're getting something else that they wanted that makes enough sense for them to say, actually, I'll take $5K less or whatever it is. It's something that I've been trying to emphasize a little bit because people are in such neck and neck competition to buy places. Is like if your agent is not versed in sort of the dark arts of making sure if a seller's looking for post-close occupancy, if a seller is looking for a certain closing date, if a seller what you're really trying to figure out broadly is, how do I lower the seller's risk? How do I raise the probability that they're going to get what they need from this transaction and lower their risk? If you can dial that in, that you're going to give yourself the best chance of having a successful offer and have it be accepted.
But isn't that all of us don't have to be involved in that part? I mean, and I guess I do a lot of coaching of other home inspectors starting out businesses, right? And the biggest thing I preach, and I'm hearing this from you, and it's why I'm bringing it up. The biggest thing I preach to them is you have to focus on 3 words. Why choose me? All right. And when it's a seller's market and there's multiple buyers out there, that's what they have to focus on. That's what I'm hearing from you. Why take my offer? Why choose me? All right. And you have to use not just one item that's going to make somebody attractive, as the potential buyer, but you have to give them, it's kind of like going to war in the military. You don't want to have a fair battle. If I have to fight with somebody, I want them overwhelmed. I want this thing over in a matter of minutes, to get in there and
Joey,
then move on.
Can you comment on that? No, Joey has no comment.
All right. I'm sure that maybe he muted or something like that for a second, and hopefully he'll be back.
Probably chasing one of his kids around.
It could be. So, but that's where what I'm hearing is like, why, when somebody's looking for a home inspector and they're not using the referral from the real estate agent, that means they're out there, there's something that happened. There's some sort of pain that they did. They got burned in the past. They heard about things. They don't want to go ahead and have that problem happen, right? And the same thing I see as a buyer. We want to give as many ideas, but these home inspectors are out there telling people why it's important to have a home inspection. They already know they're going to get a home inspection.
Yeah.
What they want to know is, who should I hire? And the same thing here is what I'm seeing is if I'm a buyer of a house and I know I have competitors where I'm going to have 5 or 10 other buyers, as you mentioned, then I have to make myself attractive. And that includes Joey. That includes you. That includes the real estate broker. We have to all work together to make our client more attractive. I do mine with knowledge about the property that they're buying so that they can decide if they want to accept it or not accept it. But man, I don't like telling people. I said, I don't know what power or leverage you have. This might be a take it or leave it. And the only person with the micro markets, I don't know how well versed you are on those, but I always push them off to the real estate broker because that's who I think can determine those micro markets. And
they're the ones who know the most about the transaction at that point.
Yeah, not all of them do. I'm sorry. I'm still a realist, a real estatist. I think that's how you say you're prejudiced against real estate agents. I know, I'm a horrible person. They're not a protected class. I could be prejudiced against them.
Wow.
I know, I'm mean.
So many people, and yeah, realtors did this to themselves, to be honest. As
a group.
For every one that's awesome and, is worth every penny they get paid, there's 9 that are. And it's frustrating for people like you and I because we get involved after that relationship develops.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the funny thing is you can tell who the most trusted person in a transaction is because they are the ones that get reached out to first when something goes wrong. So whether it's the mortgage broker, the attorney, the inspector, or the realtor, whoever has built the most trusting relationship with that client, they hear the problem and then they're kind of triaging it and moving it over to whoever can deal with it, depending on what it is. But yeah, it gives me comfort that I feel like in the majority of circumstances, I end up being that person. And, to me, that it means I'm doing something right. But that from there, right? Okay, so my ego's been stroked, fantastic. But then you need to bring in everyone else who can be of assistance in solving that problem. Yeah. And as often as not, the realtor, however, clever or talented or good they are, experienced, however you want to describe it, more often than not, they can be of very they can be very useful in those situations. And the ones I work with who I consider to be the best are the ones who I view as our process is really a collaborative one, as opposed to I have one role, you have that role. There's certainly things that I can do that the realtor probably isn't going to be capable of, but vice versa, by the way. And, same with the mortgage broker. When I have questions or issues, I reach out to Joey, or I reach out to the broker that I'm working with on the transaction. But if I don't trust that mortgage broker, I reach out to Joey, because I know I can trust Joey. I know he's going to be able to give me good, solid information that I can move forward with, and that's borne out.
This brings up a good spot, and I think I heard Joey back again.
He's been tippy tapping.
Have kids, they said.
It happens.
Joey, we were just talking about some battlefield situations, and Charlie was saying it's always best to have overwhelming force, and I'd been interested in your opinion on that, being that you're the only person with actual real experience in that. Is Charlie full of it, or is he spot on?
What, with the trust? What you were
well, no,
with
I was talking about, if you're going to go to war with somebody, you don't want to have a fair fight. I want to have an overwhelming force that I am going to win that fight in a matter of minutes, as opposed to years. The longer
I am who I am, right? And generally, if I'm quote unquote fighting, it's something with a real estate agent. So my goal in general is to get someone to believe the same thing that I believe, but make them think that they came to that conclusion on their own.
Fair enough. But this is what I'm gonna interrupt you real quick here, and I want you to go in this avenue. And Patrick, I'm gonna hit you this next. Anybody who's listening, this is the time that you want to get a pen and paper out there, all right? Joey, what I'd like you to do, this is noteworthy. Joey, I would like you to do, focus strictly on the mortgage person. What should your clients expect from you that makes them more attractive of a buyer? What can you as a mortgage broker do to make your client, what should they expect from their mortgage brokers? All right?
Well, anytime you're getting a mortgage, you need to know that you have an advocate in your corner. So I try to be as clear up front. After I get a pre-approval done, so the first time I talk to someone, I talk to them about what we need for a pre-approval. I tell them, here we go, this is where you need to go to get a pre-approval done. Once I have documents, we will get that issued immediately. But then I want to set up a buyer consult call once we issue the pre-approval, so we can go into expectation setting. That's going to be a video call. It's going to be on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever you got. I really don't care. But I'm going to tell them that's where I set my expectations as their advocate. I want them to know that when they're shopping, when they're making offers, I need to know, because if I don't know, I can't advocate. I need to call the list agent. I need to update their pre-approval to be specific to that property. I need to make sure that the list agent understands that I'm not a schmuck off the street. If they want to look up reviews, if they want to look up my production history, they can feel free. I am more than happy for them to do that. I can't guarantee something, right? Because that's a legal trap, right? But I can tell them that I haven't had a loan denied. I'm okay with that, because I haven't had a loan denied unless there was an appraisal issue that came up and we appraised short, and then we just have to deny the loan because we don't have satisfactory collateral. But it allows the listing agent to know that and when I call the listing agent, I let them know every Tuesday you're going to get an update from me, because there's a lot that happens during the course of a week. If I was giving updates constantly on every file, it would be so much communication, no one would be able to work on anything else. So every Tuesday they're going to get an update from me.
I like that.
Through closing.
Yeah, there's so many emails. I appreciate to take some of that off my plate. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Put it in your calendar. If you're asking me for an update because I didn't give it to you on Tuesday, then that's on me. That's terrible. If you're asking me for an update on Monday, I'm going to give you your update on Tuesday, because that's what I promised. Over communicating is awful. It is awful. It's just as bad as under communicating, in my opinion.
All right. So I'm hearing staying in contact and keeping the other players that are involved in the transaction up to date on a weekly basis. I'm hearing that a good mortgage broker is going to
set expectations.
Well, I was, that's not where I was going. I think the one thing that is very valuable is that you personally make sure that the information is correct, because I know you have to send it to an underwriter and you don't want the underwriter to say you're missing something, right? So you want to make sure that that's done ahead of time before we get to that point. And you're pretty damn good at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're not, you're in the wrong line of work. Mortgages are not hard. It's lazy people that make them seem hard.
But we have a lot of lazy people in all of our professions in real estate. That's the problem. And this is what I'm trying to do here.
Work ethic is hard. How about that? Work ethic is hard.
It really is. But I'm trying to figure out, because you guys are the leaders in this profession in our area. And I'm trying to figure out what makes you a leader. Why are you, so helpful? How do you empower your clients? And those are actually pretty good things. What else do you do to empower the clients?
I mean, try to make the process as easy as possible, right? One thing that is sort of inevitable, and one reason it can be difficult to differentiate yourself in this profession is that, by and large, real estate deals want to close, right?
Of course.
They
People want to buy, they want to sell, yeah.
So if you do a good, bad, or otherwise job and the transaction closes, you might view that as a success, okay? And in some ways it is, right? If the client, if the property was, if it was the right parties doing the right transaction for the right reasons, and it just so happened you were lucky enough not to have too many issues, could be a success. Could be a success that you didn't have to do a whole lot with. And now on the other hand, those are kind of rare these days. And what you really want is someone who can identify issues, number one, when they come up, identify what the impact of those issues may be, good, bad, and otherwise. Here's worst case scenario, here's what I think is most likely, and then here's maybe best case scenario, kind of paint them a picture. But at the end of the day, present them with these options, with these situations in such a way that they're able to easily digest it and make a decision that they feel comfortable with. It may sound obvious. It may be like, well, of course. I cannot tell you how many people don't end up with that experience. They just kind of go, everyone's going through the motions. They get to the closing table, they sign all the documents, they move in, and they go, well, I bought a house. How about it? But nobody in the transaction was particularly memorable. And God forbid, 6, 12, 18 months later, there is an issue that comes up, and they go, well, shoot, where was my, insert whomever was potentially responsible when they were supposed to identify that, and that's where what may have felt like a success was probably not, even though the transaction got to the closing table and everyone got paid. So developing the information that you receive over the course of the transaction into actionable decisions, the actionable points of decision for the client, it's not as easy as it may sound. If I'm making it sound easy, it's only because I've had years to sort of distill that down into the simplest terms. It's any number of things can go wrong. I mean, Joe, you and I could probably talk for the rest of the time that we have here on condos and, special assessments and deferred maintenance and lawsuits. And, every time I have a condo transaction, it's not a matter of, well, I wonder if something's going to come up. It's like, I wonder when something's going to come up and what it's going to be, and I'm ready for it. But that's the state of things these days.
Yeah, we could. I think that the one thing that drives me nuts is that borrowers, by and large, they want to be lied to without realizing that they want to be lied to.
Oh, I need to learn more on that.
Interest rates, anyone?
Tell me more.
I have a future client who is should have been a past client that I was honest up front because that's the way to be in this business, because it's a great way to retain your your reputation. But when she initially screened me, there were other lenders she talked to, and she ghosted me. And I followed up with her. I did a video on this, and I put it on the internet already. But I followed up with her because I get excited when people buy houses. I want to make sure that it was a short closing time frame, that everything would get handled. She did close, and I asked her how everything was, and she was like, I wish I had worked with you. I said, why? It's like, well, because as it turns out, the rate and terms that you were offering me were better than the ones that were initially disclosed to me. Because, as Patrick knows, an unlocked loan estimate doesn't mean a doggone thing. They promised her a rate 3/4 below market with no cost. That's what was on the initial LE. They locked it a week before closing when they knew that she would not have time to move the loan to anywhere else without moving her closing date. When they locked it, she had a higher rate and higher cost than she would have had if she had just worked with me from the get-go. So she wanted to be lied to. She wanted to be told that there's this unicorn rate that exists in the world for this unicorn cost. And she found out the hard way that people will lie to feed their families. Right, and that's those loser lenders that will lie because they have bills to pay. When the easier way to go about it is being honest and you take care of the client. You're honest with the client. They work with you. At the end of the day, you will get referrals because they will feel that you were honest up front.
The sad thing, Joey, isn't it all of our professions? We find people that lie to the clients
every day. And it's a disservice to everybody. Those people end up out of the business, which is great, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be more that flood into the industry to just be liars again.
Well, not only that, but those of us that choose to make this our profession, that harms our reputation. They're gone.
Yeah,
they're out of the business and that. But we are a prejudicial society, whether we like it or not. And if I get burned by a home inspector, well, then all home inspectors are idiots. And I'm like, no, I get it. There are plenty of bad home inspectors in this planet, but how do you prove that you're not one of them?
The good news for me is that fortunately, most, if not all, attorneys treat their clients with the utmost respect, never do anything to harm their clients.
Dude, I speak sarcasm.
And lawyers have the top reputation of any profession. There are no jokes about lawyers and how they are and what they do. So
I'll tell you a joke right now. What's the
good.
difference between an attorney and a catfish?
I don't know. What is it?
One is a scum-sucking bottom feeder, and the other one's a fish. There you go. The jokes don't get better, folks.
Roasted.
Let's go.
Dad jokes.
Oy vey. Well, look, and obviously I was being sarcastic there,
yes.
But look, there's hardly a profession out there that doesn't have bad actors in it,
yes.
And so it's just part of human nature. I mean, even the clergy has its issues. So.
Everybody does now, and there is the real talent is finding out. Who's in this for me being the home buyer, and who's in this for themselves. And, and there's got to be a little bit of the same on there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to make money. That doesn't make me a bad person. I want to do it because do it in a way that I feel passionate about. And, we focus on building up our reputation, but you two do exactly the same thing. All right. You focus hard on your reputation and you value that. So how does somebody who's a home buyer find the person who's really looking out for their best interest, that's in this game for the long run and just didn't survive for many years?
I can't really teach someone to be a good consumer, right?
No, I guess not.
If somebody, and Charlie, you and I have had this debate, and I think we will have this debate until we're both until we're both, old and gray and in a wheelchair.
I think you just called me old.
I mean, I think you just called yourself old. But,
you have more gray hair than I do.
It's probably true. And for those of you who are listening and not watching,
he has more hair.
One of us has a lot more hair than the other. But look, there are going to be there's going to be a certain insignificant percentage of the population that views what I do, you do, Joey does, a realtor does, as a commodity.
Yeah.
Those people, I cannot readjust your set of values when it comes to consuming a service. Okay. And if that's the case, I will probably not be hired because of the price I charge. And I'm okay with that because
I just fired a client yesterday.
yeah.
love
And you know, I'm not trying to tell anyone how to think about that, by the way. I mean, you may be a consumer that has enough education that you only need the bare minimum of service when it comes to that. You know, do what you feel, what feels best to you. You know, I want, you know, whatever path someone goes along to buy a home. I don't want, at the end of the day, I want them to feel good about how they got there, and whether that involves me or not. There's enough real estate transactions out there that I can afford for not every single person to hire me, and that's, you know, totally cool. That's one of the beauties of this industry, is that there are so many different ways. There's so many different personalities, there's so many different flavors of what Charlie does, what I do, what a real estate broker does, what Joey does, and you should find someone who fits with what you feel good about. But at the end of the day, you know, someone who hires me is going to want to be someone that wants the education,
There's the key word.
wants to be told, wants to be informed, wants to know as much as possible to make a good informed decision, have the best chance at a good result, and that's what I offer.
That's
So-
the common denominator that I see. All right. Knowledge is power. Let's just be realistic. The more you know, the more you're worth, and the more leverage you're going to have with the more knowledge you have as a consumer.
If you want someone to take you through the process and tell you everything's going to be fine, and that's
Not me.
then yeah, hire the lawyer that's advertising, you know, $125 for a closing, and, you know, cross your fingers. You know, you'll get there most likely. But I can't promise you that it's going to be the best result. It will be a result.
No, I'm with you, Joey. It's like, how much time do you think, on average, I know it's not going to be specific, but how much time do you think you spend educating your client on what's going to happen, what needs to be done, why it's important, and what you're going to do?
I mean, it's literally the entire first conversation that we have, along with the actual buyer consult once they're pre-approved, right? Because initially, I set the expectations on what we do to help them get pre-approved, or to get them pre-approved, right? I make sure that they understand that the ball is in their court. They've worked their entire life to get to this point. I honor them. Like, I understand that this feels like it can be a very big undertaking, but my job is to make this as easy as possible for you and be as fair as possible, right? Once I'm on the buyer consult, that's more time I spend letting them know, like, this is what I need from you when I need it, like, especially if their documents are expired because they've been pre-approved for 2 months and now they just found a house that they actually got under contract for. I let them know, hey, we're just going to update bank statements, pay stubs, and we're good to go for underwriting. If something comes up that I did not foresee because you had a foreclosure 3 years ago that wasn't on your credit report, because they don't really show up on credit reports anymore, then that's something that you probably should have told me, right? But that never happens. It's just something that I say, because if there's any sort of dishonesty between me or the buyer at the time of pre-approval, I can't uncover that until underwriting uncovers something.
Surprises kill deals. So, you know, put it all out there.
Surprises kill deals all the time.
Yeah, let me just say, you know, and because I want to say this, because if Joey says it, it may sound self-serving, but by and large, if you're working with a mortgage broker, they probably can't offer you anything that is going to be substantially different from any other mortgage broker. They're all basically selling the same thing. Now, there's some exceptions. If you're buying new construction and you're getting incentives to work with the builder's lender, probably go with them. You're most likely getting a better deal than Joey or anyone else could offer. Likewise, if you are like a private banking customer with you know, any of the banks, you know, drive down the street, point at a bank. If you're a private wealth customer with one of them, go with them because they will bend over backwards and they'll be able to do things that other lenders won't be able to do. But if you're like the other 98% of us and you're shopping for rates or you're shopping for the best deal, understand that if one loan estimate and the other broker hands you a loan estimate and they seem like they're substantially different, you need to ask a lot more questions and you need to make sure or see if the box that says locked is checked there.
That needs to be repeated every single week.
So at the end of the day, make sure you are finding a mortgage broker like Joey who is going to hustle and make sure that your deal gets closed.
But they're just not going to try and mislead you. That's the key. I'm not going to try and manipulate somebody.
I just told the consumer exactly what they need to know when they're shopping for a mortgage broker. If they deviate from that, I can't help you.
That's fair. That's completely fair. I mean,
Joey, anything I say there was any of that unfair?
There's no unicorns. If you're being told that there's a unicorn, I would immediately contact someone else.
Yeah, and if someone like is gonna be like Joey and they're gonna like tell you stuff that is maybe gonna hurt their chances of you hiring them, take that serious. That means that person is not afraid to tell you the truth. I mean, don't we all out there at the end of the day as consumers want the truth?
Yeah.
So
and make my own decision. And
Joey will tell you the truth.
Exactly, as will you, as will I.
Unfortunately.
In real estate, as far as the agents, especially with sellers, I hear, oh yeah, we can get the house for $50,000 or $100,000 more than what it's, this value is, and they promise them these big numbers, only get the deal, and then you go right back down to lower. Choosing a home inspector, they do the same thing. And they'll get it from either the real estate agent or somebody else. Oh, we'll give you warranties and we'll give you this and everything else. Those are all a bunch of BS. I mean, I offered them too because I thought they were a good thing, give extra protection for my clients in case something breaks. But then when something broke, they wouldn't pay, and it's like, what are we doing? And I don't want to ruin my reputation, so I end up paying out of my pocket. And I end up paying for these warranties. I mean, they were costing us, because we did so many, about $20,000 a year, buying all these things. And they never paid. It's like, what am I doing? I could take that $20,000, put it in a separate account, and that way I'm in control of getting the money to the clients. And it was only like 2 or 3 times a year, so it wasn't often.
Yeah, we are bad at business because we care about our customers,
Well, it's working for me, and I'm gonna stick with all that stuff.
Darn it.
No, I'm not stopping.
I can't lie to people. It's killing my business.
But we compete with people who do lie to them,
true.
And they do try to manipulate. And a lot of people think that, sales is getting someone else, always be closing and always get the deal done. It's like, why not just improve your value? I mean, in all reality, a consumer just wants to get the best value. And if you can show your worth on there, then it really doesn't matter what the cost is. I mean, we're competing with people that are $300 an inspection. We're base fee of $550. Almost double what they do, but yet we still keep our calendar booked out a week in advance, and that's with 14 inspectors.
I think for a lot of people, it just is easier to be good at talking.
Yeah, I'd rather just, and that's the funny thing. I don't want to talk to people. I want to get everything in writing and let them see it and put it there in front of them and let the other inspectors catch up to me.
Says the guy with his own podcast. I don't like talking to people.
Oh, boy. I just got busted, didn't I?
Is it time to wrap it up?
It is time. Go ahead and give us the final word.
Shucks. The final word is truthfulness. Truthfulness. I'm Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer. I try to embody the word truthfulness. Find me on social media for all the truthfulness. Loftus_law on Instagram, Loftus Law on TikTok, and Rod Longwood on Reddit.
Oh, gosh. Joey, please.
Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd, across all social medias is at the VA Loan Nerd. You can find my website at thevaloannerd.com. You can call or text me at 630.
And he does all types of mortgages. My name is Charlie Belfontaine, Chicagoland Home Inspectors.